Good morning. Today we'll look at Exodus 25 and 26. Of course, today being Saturday, tomorrow morning we have worship with Holy Communion at Mabel in Sutton at 9 o'clock and 10:30 at Our Savior's in McHenry. You're welcome to tune in on Facebook Live as always for morning worship tomorrow. And then on Monday we'll get caught up with probably quite a bit of reading here in Exodus. Today it begins with God speaking to Moses and saying, tell the people of Israel, these Israelites, to come forward with an offering. And the offering is to consist of different, materials, and gold and silver and bronze and, wood. It's gold, silver, and bronze, blue, purple, and crimson yarns, fine linen, goat's hair, tanned ram's hides, fine leather, acacia wood, oil for the lamps. And we're going to have the building of the ark of the covenant, a special and holy box, for the Israelites. And this ark of the covenant, the way it was made to be instructed to be made was about 45 inches long by 27 inches wide and 27 inches tall, and it had rings on the sides of it and places that they could put the poles through, so that as the Israelites moved through the desert regions, that they could carry this Ark of the Covenant with them. And they would make this Ark of the Covenant, and in that Ark of the Covenant, the Ten Commandments, the stones ended up in there, and other holy relics that God instructed them to put in there. And then they made a covering for this Ark of the Covenant out of crimson materials, I believe it said, and then this ark would be set into what they would build. Then the temple was just coming up. The Ark of the Covenant would be set up into the Holy of Holies, and it was kind of pictured that then this ark would be where God would sit and reign, here on earth. It was a figurative picture that way. God didn't sit on that Ark of the Covenant, but it was placed in the Holy of Holies. And as they built the temple, meant much of the wood and the fabrics and the skins and all of that came to be used in making this temple, this tent. It wasn't a permanent structure, but the sides, the walls were made in sections that were 10 cubits by each side, so 15 feet or whatever, and so high, and they were made with pins so that they would interlock when they set them up, but yet they would come apart easily in order to be transported. And this is something that I don't very often think about as the Israelites wandered in the wilderness, that, as they moved, they had to move those things with them. And the ark, I've always, pictured that, on the poles, and you carrying that the way it would be. But the walls of the covenant and all of the curtains that were made to go around the outside, and then it was to build the Holy of Holies, a separate holy place. And this is, kind of in our churches today, the altar area of our churches is kind of reminiscent of that Holy of Holies. And it was behind that curtain in the Holy of Holies that Zechariah, John the Baptist's father, went to do the yearly priestly duties, and it was an off-limits area, and that curtain separating the Holy of Holies from the holy sanctuary is the very curtain that was torn from top to bottom upon the death of Jesus on the cross. That we aren't going to read the New Testament and talk about, we aren't going to talk about the New Testament this year, but it'll come in every once in a while. And so the building of the temple, the construction of all of it, and the curtains, were to be made out of this purple, blue, and crimson cloth, and then carefully woven into these curtains were to be images of the cherubim. and you know, God had very specific instructions, and it's one of those things that, you know, these Israelites, their work had been building bricks, tending the sheep, tending the cattle, and you know, they weren't all skilled laborers in so many different things. But you know, as you know, we don't read today that God said, I will give all of the people the skills necessary, but God, you know, had this specific plan of how this temple, this tabernacle rather, should be, the tent of the tabernacle, and so that it would be a structure when they were in place for a while, but yet it would be movable, you know, easily taken down and moved that way. And so they made the Ark of the Covenant, and then the tabernacle itself, and then there was a table to be put into the tabernacle, and a lampstand, and you know, very specific, use acacia wood, use this and that, and the different oils and everything that was to come that way. And so the lamp stand, you know, I always picture, you know, a lamp with one light on it, but you know, in verse 37, you shall make the 7 lamps for it, and the lamps will be set up to give light on the space in front of it. So it's, you know, it isn't just one light of some sort up there with, you know, the oil for the flames for the candles and everything that way. But you know, they were to make snuffers and trays out of pure gold. And you know, I think about, you know, most of our candle snuffers, lighters, I don't remember the proper word for them, but you know, we have in our churches, they've got a little wooden handle on the end, and then, you know, kind of a golden colored you know, tube that goes up with a wick in there to be able to light the candles. And you know, but you know, so we still have some of that imagery, you know, in our churches, and we have the sanctuary, you know, that's the holy place, you know, and then the Holy of Holies is our altar area, and we have you know, we have an altar fixture kind of usually up in the front of the church. Most churches have an altar of some sort, and we have the candelabra there, and so we still use much of this imagery as we gather together in God's house of worship. And I think it's one of the nice customs that we still have, is that we, you know, set aside things that way for God. And in many of our churches as well, we have colorful banners hanging on the walls and up in the front, and different, you know, areas, you know, with maybe for baptism with the dove and the flame, and you know, just, you know, we have so much beauty in our sanctuaries, and I think it really traces back to some of this, what God tells them how to build the tabernacle. You know, chapter 26 begins with, moreover you shall make the tabernacle with 10 curtains of fine twisted linens, blue, purple, crimson yarns, and make them with cherubim skillfully on them. Again, so not only the cover for the tabernacle, the Ark of the Covenant, and you know, but some of the curtains inside, you know, are, you know, beautiful adorning that way. And you make loops of blue. I mean, he's very specific in his instructions as to how to do that, you know. And you make 50 loops on one curtain, and you make 50 loops on the edge of the curtains, and you know, the loops are so that the curtains would be able to be bound together then as they put them up. You know, make 50 clasps of bronze. So you got these loops, and then you got the clasps to put them on. God's got it all figured out, and he gives the Israelites then the skills as well to make all of this that is in there. And in verse 30, you shall erect the tabernacle according to the plan for it that you were shown on the mountain. You shall make the curtain of blue, purple, crimson, and all the fine linens in it. And you shall hang the 4 pillars of acacia, you know. And so God showed Moses up on the mountain just exactly what his picture of the tabernacle was, so that Moses would be able to go then back down and have that made. And They made a verse 36 of chapter 26, you shall make a screen for the entrance of the tent of blue, purple, and crimson. And again, purple was, a highly sought after dye, and cloth was more expensive that way, but colorful. And, and it isn't, we don't have to come to God, in drab and dreary that way, but we come, it makes me think of in your Easter bonnet, and we dress up, and God is dressing up the tabernacle for the people. But, it's, he's giving them instructions to see, how well they'll be able to listen and how well they'll be able to follow this God who has taken them to be his people.